I spent this past weekend teaching people how to recognize family patterns in the Akashic Records. And we talked about inherited beliefs and family legacies, and we talked about ancestral contracts. And then somewhere between the class and the conversations and the drive home, I realized something really uncomfortable. The family pattern I'm working on right now isn't behind me. It's standing right in front of me. Because in my head, I'm still someone's daughter. I'm still sorting through what I inherited, and I'm still healing old wounds, and I'm still trying to understand my mother, my family, myself, and then it hit me. My daughter may be looking at me the same way I once looked at my mother, and not because either one of us are wrong, but because that's what happens. Children grow up, they separate, they question, they push against the walls of who raised them, and suddenly I find myself in a place I never expected to be. Not as the daughter trying to understand her mother, but as the mother trying to understand her daughter. And honestly, that may be some of the deepest shadow work I've ever done. Welcome to Chats with Aunt Jacki. I'm Jacki Smith, author, candle maker, Akashic record reader, and the auntie who will hand you a candle, tell you the truth, and remind you that magic works better when we stop lying to ourselves. Last episode, we talked about the Akashic records and that really human question that we have when we're working on spiritual things, which is, am I making this up? Now, this week, I do want to stay with the Akashic records, but I want to bring the conversation much closer to home. This past weekend, I taught at the Midwest Shamans Conference. It was amazing. And one of the classes I taught was about family patterns and family legacies and ancestral healing through the Akashic Records. I have to say the class went beautifully. The conversations were rich. People were open. They were honest. They were vulnerable, and they were brave. I am humbled by the response I got during the class and how well it went. And what stayed with me the most during the weekend and after the class is that sometimes the family pattern we're working on is not some ancient story 6 generations back. I mean, oftentimes it is, but sometimes it's alive in the room with us right now. And sometimes it's about the way we parent, and it's in the way we relate to our adult children. This seemed to be a challenge that came up over and over this weekend, and there is an ache that I see realizing that our children are having their own experience of us. It's humbling and it's uncomfortable. So today we're going to talk about those family patterns and shadow work, mothers and daughters and their challenging relationship, especially once they become our adult children, and the uncomfortable magic of realizing that we are not the only child in the story anymore, because we may also be the parent. The funny thing about adulthood is nobody tells you how much of an improvisational, make it up as you go routine that it is. I mean, they tell you, but you don't get it until you're there. I mean, owning a business, paying a mortgage, raising children, teaching classes, having our own spiritual growth. I mean, writing books and making dinner and answering emails and doing the laundry. And you still have those moments where you think, I really want an adultier adult, please. I don't want to be the adult in the room. And especially after your parents have passed, you really realize you are the adult in the room. Because in our heads, we're still someone's child. We're still reacting to the family system that we came from. We're still sorting through those things we swore we would never repeat. And I don't know about you, but oftentimes I'm still hearing the old voices in my head. And those old voices force me to discover which part of me is wisdom, which part is wounds, and which part are just bad coping skills wearing, I don't know, a nice coat. And then, if we're a parent, our children grow up and they look at us like we're the full adult in the room. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel that to be a suspicious arrangement because we know our own inner life. I know my own inner life, and I know how I'm still figuring it out. And I know the places where I was doing my best, and I know the times when I was phoning it in and my nervous system was on alert and I didn't have an instruction manual, because unfortunately our kids don't experience our intention first. I think that's such a rude awakening that I had as a parent of an adult child. She kind of doesn't care about what my intention is. She cares about the impact. Our children experience the impact of what's happening in our life, and that's where this work gets real. I'm thinking about, I don't know, years ago when I was just becoming an adult, there was this book called My Mother, Myself. Do you remember that book? If you're in your 50s and plus, you probably remember that book. And it made sense to me from the daughter side. It helped me understand what I inherited from my mom and where she ended and I began. And it taught me how to have better boundaries and a better understanding of myself. And now being the mother, there is a strange and uncomfortable twist to this because now I'm the mother in that sentence. I'm the mother in the book, My Mother, Myself. And now my daughter's asking those same questions. Where does my mother end and where do I begin? And what did she inherit from me? And what does she want to keep? And what does she want to push against? And that's humbling to see that you're not the hero in the story anymore. You might be the villain to them because my daughter is not experiencing me the same way I experience me. And this is really important. Let me say it one more time. My child is not experiencing me the same way I experience myself because I know my intention, but she knows her experience and both can be true. And even though both can be true, there is no hero or villain in the story. It does not mean that every accusation is accurate from the parent or the child. And it doesn't mean that parents should become like an emotional punching bag as the adult child figures out who they are in the world with and without their parent. And it doesn't mean that your adult children understand the whole picture of who you are because they probably never will. Not until they're much older, if ever at all. But what it does mean is that someone can be reacting to a version of us that we don't fully recognize. And I learned for myself that instead of defending myself, sometimes I just need to ask myself some deeper questions. Like, what are they seeing? What did they need to know that I didn't know how to give? I mean, where did I confuse love with control or protection with fear? And where did I think that I was helping when I may have been managing them? I learned a while ago that to simply say, to my adult child, I'm really sorry. That is not what you wanted from me. And I'm sorry I was not that. Not that I couldn't be that or I tried my best, but just an honest apology that you heard them, that they needed something that you couldn't give. But that's really, really honest work when you understand that you are also the family pattern for the rest of your family, for your children. And hey, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Chats with Aunt Jackie. And today we're talking about family patterns and shadow work and the uncomfortable moment when we are now a part of someone else's family story. And if this conversation is landing for you, take a second to follow and subscribe or share it with somebody who is trying to heal without pretending that the whole thing is nice and tidy. Because this stuff that we talk about in the show is not tidy, but it's exactly what we need to talk about. Family pattern work is shadow work, and shadow work is kind of having a moment right now because everyone's talking about it. And I love that people are willing to do that deep dive within themselves. And I remember back in the day, and actually right now, people talk about shadow work being packaged like it's this dramatic descent into the underworld, to the basement of our soul where you can find one scary thing and you name it and then you emerge healed and in better lighting. And absolutely, shadow work is about healing the wound. That wound that's filled with like grief, it's rage, I don't know, shame, jealousy, all those things that we kind of shoved in the closet because, I don't know, guests were coming over and we just needed to pretend and act as if and fake it till you make it, But the more I think about it and the more I work my own shadow work, the more I realize is that so much healing is just shadow work. Akashic Records is shadow work. Ancestral healing is shadow work. Protection magic can be shadow work. And goodness knows, candle magic is certainly shadow work at times because all of it asks something of it. What am I not seeing? What am I carrying? What is the pattern running underneath all of this stuff and driving the bus? And what am I calling fate that might actually be fear? I mean, that's a good one. That's like, I'm destined to do this or I'm not destined to do this. And sometimes it's just our fear taking the bus over and driving it for us to the place that we don't want to go. Or maybe it's the safer place. And I mean, the shadow work can be in love, where you think it's love, but it's actually being controlling, especially as a parent. And sometimes loyalty can actually be a bit of self-abandonment. There's two sides to everything within the shadow. There's also the positive side that you learn from it. There's the gift that you get every time you dive into those shadows. And honestly, one of the hardest shadows to see is the version of ourselves that exists in someone else's experience. I say this all the time. No one is the villain in their own story. And when they start to become the villain in the story, it is a brutal mirror. We fight against it. We don't want to be it. We have reasons. We have defensiveness. We have anger back at them for calling out something that we need to look in the mirror about. Because I know I love my child. I can know this within the depths of my heart, that I love them, I respect them, and I tried, and goodness knows I sacrificed, and I did better than what was done to me. And still, my child may have needed something else from me. They needed something that I didn't give them, and they needed to say what it's like to be raised by me or raised by you. And that doesn't erase the love, and it doesn't erase the love they have for you. And it doesn't erase the effort that you put in, but it does kind of ask for humility and vulnerability and slow thinking and a breath and a beat. And because that is all part of the spiritual work we have to do. When I talk about family patterns, especially this weekend, a lot of those family patterns came out as old stories. My grandma did this. This is 7 generations back. I have these horrible relatives. I have this pattern through my mother's line or my father's line or my great-grandfather's line. And the wound started generations ago, and there's attachments and the whole thing. And yes, absolutely, that's true. And that's the work that I do in the records. And it's really healing for you and to understand what you're all about and why you have the current family patterns. But I've come to realize, especially this weekend and the conversations that I had, that these family patterns aren't like museum pieces. They're not something that you dust off and see what's happening. The family patterns, no matter where they started, they're living things. It's how you react and avoid things, how you apologize or deal with stress and disappointment. It's how you manage money, how you manage relationships, and the conflict that comes with every relationship. It's the patterns show up in so many different ways. It shows up in your health. It can show up in your friend patterns. It's in every area of our life, and maybe how we force people to prove that they love us and they're going to be there for forever because there's family patterns of abandonment and aloneness. But it doesn't always have to be a curse. Sometimes it's unfinished business. It can be a legacy that this is repeating over and over. And unfortunately, you could be the one that starts that legacy. And that's what shadow work is about. Dealing with that survival strategy that worked for someone else generations ago or even the last generation. But that was in another time and in different circumstances and different stressors. And so if you're have this family pattern, this family legacy, and this ancestral contract, just remember it started in a different time with a different set of needs. And we're in a very modern age, even from 50 years ago. I'm doing this podcast right now, and it's easy to do. Well, relatively. But there's so many patterns that can come out, people pleasing, conflict avoidance. If you have perfectionism or hyper independence, here's a good one, emotional caretaking, or just being really silent and martyr like. Those are all family patterns and legacies that may even be ancestral contracts. And it's very healable. In the Akashic Records, it's very healable to find and rewrite them. And there's one thing I've learned in this weekend, as well as different clients that I've had, is sometimes you don't fix your family. You fix you. You become conscious of the role that you're playing in your family life and with your adult children, with your parents, with your siblings. And then that also cascades out into that chosen family, because you can take that same family pattern and try and repeat it within your chosen family. And boy, doesn't that knock on some other family patterns and cause a little hoopla. But we can't heal what we don't name. And we can't change that family pattern if we insist that we're not part of it. We have to own the fact that we are part of the pattern and we have perpetuated our own things. But this is where I want to be careful, because not every family relationship can or should be repaired, and that sometimes distance is necessary. There are times when someone's safety or sanity or soul requires space, and that's okay. Because there are parents that have caused real harm, and then there are adult children that can be very cruel back or avoidant or unwilling to see their parents as human. And that's a situation where everybody is not talking and nobody has the language yet. Everybody's quiet and in their hurt and in their anger and in their pain. So just talk it out doesn't always work. I mean, that's an easy answer. It's like, well, can't you guys just talk to each other? I mean, just talk it out and blah, blah, blah. And that doesn't always work. I've had plenty of clients where and just one really recently where it's just give them space, let them find their way back to you. Take your inventory of what may have hurt them honestly without your defensiveness, because that's what becoming conscious about your own family pattern is about. Don't make yourself the hero or the villain, because there's a magic in that allows you to stay in a balance, to come to a deeper understanding, almost like a universal truth around things. And I always say, she who asks the questions is in control of the room, meaning your own life. So asking questions is one of your best magical tools. And it's not like, who wronged me, or what is wrong, or how dare they do this? Why did they do this to me? It's you have to turn those questions back into yourself. Like, for instance, what's the pattern here? What's the pattern that I'm perpetuating? And what is the pain that I'm protecting? Or the worst one yet, what is the truth that I am refusing to see? Because it might change how I see myself. And then there's the truth that belongs to you, even though no one else ever validates it. And then there's the truth that doesn't belong to you, that it's somebody else's story. Because what we do when we don't have all the facts in any situation, we fill in the blanks with our own story. And that's usually a reflection or a mirror on ourselves. If we don't know someone's motivation, we fill in the blank on that motivation. But whatever blank you're filling in, just remember, you're filling it in with a piece of you. And that is grown-up magic. That is like candle on the table kind of magic. And it's the type of magic that goes deep and it doesn't bypass grief, kind of forces you to sit down and be with it. And you have to talk to yourself and say, what am I actually working with? It's a hard thing. I've done this with my daughter and I'm not done. And you're not alone. If you're dealing with this, you're not alone. I can name, but I won't name them. I'll keep them all anonymous. But there was at least 10 people in the past couple of months that I've had sessions with, and we worked through the dynamic of the parent and the adult child. When I talked to my therapist about this, one of the things that I learned from her is that I needed to learn how to not parent. Because once they hit a certain age, they don't need you to parent them. They might just need you to validate them or let them go for a while because you did your job. And then I had to take my own inventory. Did I do my job? Could I have done better? Probably, but I had to forgive myself and know that I did the best I could with what I had. This weekend, when I taught the class about family patterns and how to work with them and heal those ancestral patterns in the Akashic Records, I guess I didn't imagine that I was going to leave with a new awareness of myself, but isn't that what happens when we teach, we learn? And that's how the work goes. We think we're teaching one thing, and then the Akashic Records says, ha ha, and they slide that mirror in front of you and say, this is what you need to work on. Even though you're the teacher, we're going to give you your own stuff. And after several conversations, I realized the family pattern standing right in front of me or right in front of you maybe the one you are ready to learn from. You're ready to tackle next. And it does not fix everything perfectly or even permanently, because we're dealing with this layer by layer, and it's not going to resolve it in a day or in a week, but it helps you take the step and the next step and the next step. So if you are estranged from your adult child, you will have done more healing and learning and growing for when they're ready to get in contact with you again. We're not wrapping this whole show up into a healing moment or a healing meme. I don't have all the answers, but I know that there's a lot of us out there that have dealt with times when we've been estranged from our adult children and we sat there with the grief and the confusion, and we needed to learn from it, kind of name it, witness it, work with it, and knowing that you're not alone, it helps. And when you can name this and witness it, then little by little, you can stop passing it forward. And that's magic. And that's shadow work. And that's family healing. So until next time, my friends, trust your magic and keep your candle lit. This is Jacki Smith with Chats with Aunt Jacki. And if this has hit something within you and you want to talk about it further, you can go to auntjacki.com and book a session with me and we can dive in more. Or check out my other shows and see what else might hit a chord with you.